My wife kissed her boss at the Christmas party and called him a real man. I smiled, left, and destroyed both their careers with one email. She lost everything. And the best part? She still thinks it was just about the affair. It wasn't. It was about respect. My name is Holden Ross. I'm 51 years old, and for the past 19 years, I managed the supply chain at Meridian Automotive. Nothing glamorous, just keeping the assembly lines running by making sure parts arrived on time from the right suppliers. My wife, Jessica, 48, worked in marketing at Vanguard Solutions, a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. We had 2 kids, Theodore, 23, studying computer science at State, and Sophie, 18, finishing her senior year of high school. The party was at the Riverside Hotel, one of those glittering affairs with an open bar and a jazz band that nobody really listened to. Jessica wore a red dress that night, the kind that turned heads. I wore the same charcoal suit I'd worn to every company function for the past 5 years. We arrived separately. She had a late meeting, or so she said. I was nursing a ginger ale near the dessert table when I saw them. Jessica and her boss, Brandon Kent. He was 50, silver-haired, one of those guys who looked like he stepped out of a cologne commercial. They were laughing too loud, standing too close. Then she did it. She grabbed his tie, pulled him down, and kissed him. Not a peck. A real kiss. The kind that makes people shift uncomfortably and suddenly find their phones fascinating. The room went quiet for just a second. That awkward silence where everyone knows something inappropriate just happened, but nobody wants to acknowledge it. Then Jessica pulled back, grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, and raised it high. "Ladies," she announced, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "This is what confidence feels like. This is what ambition looks like." She gestured toward Brandon, who stood there grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "This is what a real leader inspires." Her eyes found mine across the room. She was waiting for me to react, to make a scene, to give her the drama she wanted. I could feel people watching, waiting to see what the boring husband would do. I smiled. Not a fake smile, not a grimace. A genuine, calm smile. Then I set down my glass, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the exit. No scene, no shouting, just footsteps on marble floors and the muffled sound of the jazz band starting up again behind me. Outside, the December air hit me like a slap. I stood there for a moment, breath fogging in the cold, then pulled out my phone. The email was already drafted, had been for 2 weeks. Subject line, compliance concerns, urgent review required. Attached were 3 audio files, 2 PDF scans, and 1 video clip. Time-stamped, verified, damning. I hit send to 1 recipient. Just 1. Then I got in my car and drove home. The party would continue for another 2 hours. Jessica would keep laughing, keep drinking, keep pretending she'd just made some bold feminist statement. Brandon would bask in the attention, thinking he'd scored some kind of victory. They had no idea what I just set in motion. By the time Jessica stumbled through her front door at 2 in the morning, her phone would be ringing, and the voice on the other end would change everything. The call came at 3:47 in the morning. I know because I was still awake, sitting in my home office with the lights off, watching the driveway through the window. Jessica's car pulled in at 2:13. She stumbled getting out, her heels catching on the pavement. The red dress looked wrinkled now, less glamorous in the harsh glow of the motion sensor lights. I heard her fumble with her keys, curse quietly, then the front door opened. She didn't call out for me, didn't check to see if I was home, just kicked off her shoes in the hallway and headed upstairs. The bedroom door closed. Water ran in the bathroom. Then silence. I stayed in my office chair, waiting. At 3:47, her phone rang. I heard it through the walls, that shrill ringtone she'd set for work contacts. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. 30 seconds later, it rang again. This time she answered. Her voice was muffled, groggy, confused. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard the tone shift. Confusion to alert. Alert to panic. Footsteps overhead. Fast, uneven. The bedroom light clicked on, spilling into the hallway. More footsteps. Then I heard her laptop open, the familiar startup chime. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the kitchen. Put on a pot of coffee. The ritual of it felt appropriate. Measure the grounds. Pour the water. Press start. The machine hummed to life. Jessica came down 5 minutes later. Her face was pale, makeup smeared under her eyes. She wore an old college sweatshirt and pajama pants. The laptop was clutched against her chest like a shield. She stopped when she saw me standing there, coffee mug in hand. "You're awake," she said, her voice flat. It wasn't a question. I took a sip. Couldn't sleep. She stared at me for a long moment, trying to read my expression. I kept it neutral, pleasant even, like we were discussing the weather. "Brandon called," she said finally. "Did he?" I raised an eyebrow. Bit late for a work call. Her jaw tightened. "He said you sent him something. An email." "Did I?" I set down my mug, leaned against the counter. What did it say? Jessica's hands were shaking now. She opened the laptop, turned it toward me. On the screen was my email. Subject line visible. Attachments listed below. She hadn't opened them yet. Smart. Part of her didn't want to know. "What is this, Holden?" Her voice had an edge now. Fear masked as anger. "Evidence," I said simply. "Compliance documentation. Brandon should review it carefully. You both should." "Evidence of what?" I walked past her, refilled my coffee. "You know what, Jessica? You've known for months. The question isn't what I have. The question is what you're going to do now that other people have it too." She followed me into the living room. "Who else has this?" "Holden, who did you send this to?" I sat down in my reading chair, the one by the window. "Someone who deserves to know the truth. Someone who's been lied to as much as I have." Her face went white. "You didn't. Tell me you didn't send this to his wife," I finished. "Miranda. She was very receptive when I reached out last month. Turns out she had her own suspicions about Brandon. And when I showed her what I'd found, well, she had some interesting information to share with me too." Jessica's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the couch, laptop sliding from her hands onto the cushions. "You've been planning this." "For 6 months," I confirmed. "Since I found the first hotel receipt." "You weren't very careful, Jessica." "Same credit card we use for family expenses. Same calendar you share with me. You really thought I wouldn't notice." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "The party. Tonight. That was the trigger," I said. "I needed something public. Something undeniable. You were kind enough to provide exactly that." "Holden, please." Her voice broke. Real tears now, not the angry kind. "We can fix this. We could talk about this." I stood up, walked to the stairs. "Brandon's phone is ringing right now because Miranda sent him the full file. Security footage, bank statements, some very interesting emails about non-disclosure violations during the Caldwell merger. That one's particularly problematic for him since he signed a fiduciary agreement." I paused at the bottom of the stairs, looked back at her. "You wanted everyone to know what a real leader looks like, Jessica. Now they will. Just not the version you were hoping for." I climbed the stairs, leaving her sitting there in the dark with her laptop and her panic. Behind me, her phone started ringing again. Monday morning came with a gray sky and freezing rain. I dressed in my usual work clothes, ate breakfast alone while Jessica stayed upstairs, and left the house at 7 sharp. The roads were slick, traffic slow, but I didn't mind. I had time. Meridian Automotive's headquarters sat on the east side of town, a sprawling complex of offices and warehouses. I'd worked there for 19 years, built every supplier relationship from scratch after the 2009 crisis nearly bankrupted the company. I knew which vendors would bend on price, which ones never missed a deadline, which account managers drank too much at Christmas parties and needed gentle reminders to check their email. I pulled into my parking spot, grabbed my briefcase, and headed inside. My office was on the 3rd floor, a corner space with windows overlooking the loading docks. I set down my coffee, opened my laptop, and started drafting my resignation letter. Not immediate. That would be suspicious. But 90 days, citing the executive transition clause in my original contract. The clause nobody remembered because it was buried on page 47 of a document signed nearly 2 decades ago. That clause gave me discretionary oversight of vendor relationships during any transition period exceeding 60 days, which meant for the next 3 months, I could approve or pause any supplier contract, review any vendor agreement, flag any compliance concern. And 3 of those vendors were the exact ones Jessica's department relied on for their flagship Q1 product launch. I was halfway through the letter when someone knocked on my door. "Come in," I called, not looking up. The door opened. Heels clicked on the tile floor. I glanced up and froze. Miranda Cole stood in my doorway. 42, dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a charcoal business suit. She worked in HR at Vanguard Solutions, Jessica's company. We'd met exactly once, at a joint company charity event 3 years ago. I remembered because she'd been polite, professional, and had left early with a headache. "Mr. Ross," she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were red-rimmed. "I hope you don't mind. I got your office address from the company directory." I stood up, gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please, sit." She closed the door behind her, sat down with her purse clutched in her lap. "I wanted to thank you for what you sent me Friday night." "You don't need to thank me," I said. "You deserve to know the truth." Miranda looked down at her hands. "Brandon and I were together for 3 years. Back before he made VP. He promised we'd get married once his divorce was finalized. That was 7 years ago." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Turns out his divorce was finalized 6 years ago. He just never mentioned it." I sat back down and waited. People needed to talk sometimes. Needed someone to just listen. "I have something for you," she continued. She reached in her purse and pulled out a flash drive. Set on my desk like it was made of lead. Security footage from Vanguard servers. I've worked in HR there for 12 years. I have access to things most people don't. I picked up the drive, turned it over in my hand. "What's on it?" "Evidence," she said. "Brandon and your wife weren't just having an affair. They were discussing merger details with Caldwell Industries. Private information. Before the deal was approved by the board. Before NDAs were even signed." My pulse quickened. "That's a securities violation." "It's worse than that," Miranda said. "Brandon was feeding information to a friend who works at Caldwell. Insider trading adjacent, if not outright illegal. Your wife was in those meetings. She knew what he was doing." I stared at the flash drive. This was bigger than I'd expected. Bigger than an affair. This was career-ending for both of them. "Why are you giving this to me?" I asked. Miranda met my eyes. "Because Brandon destroyed me. Professionally. Emotionally. I reported him once, 3 years ago, for harassment. He had it buried. Had my performance review tanked. I almost lost my job." She stood up. "Now I'm giving you the weapon I never had. Use it however you want." She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. "Your son came to see me 2 weeks ago. Theodore. He's a good kid. Smart. He figured out his mother was having an affair and wanted to help you. I told him to stay out of it. But he insisted on giving me some information he'd found." My throat tightened. "What information?" "Text messages. Downloaded from the family phone plan. Your wife wasn't very careful with her passwords." She smiled, sad and tired. "He loves you very much, Mr. Ross. You should be proud." Then she left, closing the door quietly behind her. I sat there holding the flash drive, mind racing. Theodore had known. Had been helping me without my knowledge. My 23-year-old son, who should have been focused on finals and programming projects, had been gathering evidence against his own mother. I plugged in a drive. Files opened. Video footage. Email chains. Bank statements. Everything I needed to make sure Jessica and Brandon never worked in corporate America again. By Tuesday afternoon, 3 things happened in quick succession. First, Apex Manufacturing sent an email to Meridian's procurement department. Subject line, contract review, temporary hold. They were one of our primary suppliers for transmission components, moving $15 million in parts annually. The email was professional, vague, citing internal capacity reassessment and vendor relationship audits. I'd called the Monday evening, had a long conversation with their CEO, Bill Henderson, a man I'd helped out of a jam 4 years ago when a shipment got held up in customs over Christmas. He owed me, and when I explained I was transitioning out of Meridian and needed to ensure all compliance protocols were documented before I left, he understood perfectly. The hold wasn't permanent, just pending. But pending was enough. Second, Jessica's production launch got flagged for delay. Her assistant called me 3 times. I didn't answer. Let go to voicemail. The panic in her voice grew with each message. Third, Sophie came home from school and went straight to her room without speaking to me. That was the one that hurt. I found her an hour later, sitting on her bed with her laptop open, tears streaming down her face. She looked up when I knocked, and the anger in her eyes was devastating. "Everyone knows," she said. Her voice shook. "Everyone at school. Someone's dad works at Vanguard, and he told his wife, and she told everyone, and now the whole school is talking about how mom cheated on you." I stepped into the room, closed the door behind me. "Sophie, why did you do it?" she demanded. Why did you send that email? Why did you have to make it public? I sat down on the edge of her bed. I didn't make it public, sweetheart. Your mother did. At the party. In front of 200 people. But you sent the evidence to people. You told Brandon's wife. You're the reason everyone knows. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Mom said you're trying to ruin her life. Your mother, I said carefully, made choices. I'm just making sure those choices have consequences. Sophie's jaw tightened. She looked so much like Jessica in that moment. Same stubborn set to her chin. Same fire in her eyes. She made a mistake. People make mistakes, Dad. You're supposed to forgive. Some mistakes can be forgiven, I said. Some can't. Your mother didn't just kiss another man, Sophie. She humiliated me publicly. She's been lying to us for months. To all of us. She still loves us, Sophie said, but her voice wavered. Maybe I allowed. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. No honesty. She stared at her laptop screen. I could see the reflection in her eyes. Social media. Comments. Gossip. I hate this, she whispered. I know. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle. Are you getting divorced? The question hung heavy between us. I'd been avoiding it, but she deserved honesty. Yes, I said. We are. Sophie nodded slowly. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Where will I live? With me, I said. If you want to. Or with your mother. That's your choice. But you'll always have a home with me, Sophie. Always. She didn't respond. Just pulled her knees up to her chest and stared at the wall. I stood up, walked to the door. If you need to talk. I need you to leave, she said quietly. I left, closing the door behind me. Stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to her cry through the walls. Downstairs, my phone buzzed. A text from Theodore. Dad, we need to talk. Can you call me? I stepped into my office, dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. Dad, I need to tell you something, Theodore said. His voice was tight, stressed. Mom called me yesterday. She knows I helped you. My stomach dropped. Ow. She found old texts on the family plan. Ones I sent to Miranda Cole. He paused. She's furious. She said if I don't help her fix this, she's cutting me off. No more help with tuition. No more support. Theodore. I don't care about the money, he interrupted. But she said something else. She said she's going to contest your evidence. Say you fabricated it. That you manipulated the timestamps. I sat down, mind racing. She can't prove that. She doesn't have to prove it, Theodore said. She just has to make people doubt it. And she's got Brandon's lawyers helping her now. I closed my eyes, exhaled slowly. Jessica was fighting back. I'd expected that. But dragging Theodore into it was a line I hadn't anticipated her crossing. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to help you finish this, Theodore said. Whatever it takes. Thursday morning, I submitted my resignation to HR. Deborah Fisher, the director, stared at the letter like it was written in a foreign language. 90 days, she said, blinking behind her thick glasses. Holden, most people give 2 weeks. Or leave immediately. Contract clause, I explained, sliding a highlighted copy across her desk. Section 4C. Executive Transition Protocol. I retain vendor oversight during the exit period unless waived by the board. She scanned the document, her lips moving as she read. I've never seen this invoked before. It's rarely used, I agreed. But it's valid. And you want to work remotely? I'll be available by email and phone. But yes, I prefer to work from home during the transition. Deborah set down the papers, studied me over her glasses. Is this about what happened at the Christmas party? Because if there are personal issues affecting your work environment, this is about retiring on my own terms. I interrupted gently. 19 years is enough. I'm ready for something new. She didn't believe me. I could see in her eyes. But she couldn't argue with the contract. 20 minutes later, I walked out with my resignation officially filed and my remote work approved. By noon, the first vendor paused their shipments. Apex Manufacturing sent the notice directly to Jessica's project manager, unable to fulfill Q1 transmission component order due to ongoing compliance review. Expect 4 to 6 week delay. By 2 o'clock, the second vendor followed. TechCore Industries, our primary supplier for electrical systems, flagged capacity constraints and postponed their delivery timeline. Jessica's assistant called me 6 times. I ignored every call. At 3:15, my phone rang again. This time it was Paul Hendricks, Meridian's chief operating officer. I answered. Holden, what the hell is going on? Paul's voice was tight, controlled anger beneath professional courtesy. Two of our major suppliers just put contracts on hold, both citing compliance reviews. Both are vendors you manage. Managed. I corrected. I resigned this morning. Check with HR. Silence. Then, you what? Resigned. 90-day transition. It's in my contract. Holden, we have a $15 million product launch in 6 weeks. We need those parts. Can you call these vendors and smooth this over? I could, I said. But I'm transitioning out, Paul. You'll need to assign these accounts to someone else. There is no one else, Paul said through gritted teeth. You built these relationships over 2 decades. These suppliers trust you, not Meridian. Then perhaps the company should have valued that trust more, I said, before letting certain behaviors slide in the name of corporate politics. Another pause. Longer this time. What are you talking about? Ask Jessica, I said. Or better yet, ask Brandon Kent. I believe they have some insights into vendor relationships and corporate ethics. I hung up before he could respond. Within an hour, the third vendor made their move. Precision Dynamics, who supplied our manufacturing equipment, sent a formal letter requesting contract renegotiation due to personnel changes in key relationship management positions. Jessica's product launch was dead in the water. 3 critical suppliers, all stalled, and the clock was ticking. My phone buzzed. A text from Theodore. Dad, Mom just called me again. She's panicking. Says the company's blaming her for the supplier issues. Says she needs my help to prove you're sabotaging her on purpose. I typed back. What did you tell her? That I'd think about it. But Dad, she's desperate. She said if she loses this job, she loses everything. She made her choices, Theodore. Now she's living with them. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. I know. But she's still my mom. This is hard. I know, son. I'm sorry. I set down my phone, stared out my office window. The sky was darkening, clouds rolling in from the west. Snow forecast for tonight. My computer chimed. Email notification. From Miranda Cole. Subject line. You need to see this. I opened it. Inside was a forwarded message chain. Internal Vanguard communications. Between Brandon Kent and someone named Richard Ashford, CFO of Caldwell Industries. The emails dated back 6 months. Detailed discussions about the merger. Specific numbers. Confidential projections. Information that should never have left Vanguard secured servers. And Jessica's name appeared in 3 of the forwarded threads. Not as a direct participant, but copied in the original messages. She'd seen this information, known what Brandon was doing. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was corporate espionage. Securities fraud. The kind of thing that didn't just end careers. It ended them with lawsuits and possible criminal charges. I forwarded the email to my attorney with a note. Please review and advise on legal implications. Then I leaned back in my chair and waited for the next domino to fall. Friday evening. I was in my study reviewing financial documents when I heard the front door open. Footsteps in the hallway. Light, careful. Sophie was home from school. Sophie. I called out. Yeah, it's me, she answered. Her voice sounded strained. I set down my pen, walked to the doorway. She stood in the foyer, backpack slung over one shoulder, face pale and eyes red. You okay? I asked. She nodded quickly. Too quickly. Fine. Just tired. Lots of homework. Want some dinner? I can order pizza. Not hungry. She headed for the stairs. I'm just going to my room. I watched her climb the steps, something nagging at the back of my mind. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes. The tension in her shoulders. But I let it go. She was 18, dealing with her parents' divorce. Of course she was struggling. I returned to my study, pulled up the vendor contracts on my laptop, started drafting transition notes that would be useless to whoever tried to take over my accounts. An hour later, I heard Sophie's door open. Footsteps in the hallway. They paused outside my study. I glanced up. The door was cracked open about 2 inches. Through the gap, I could see a shadow. Sophie, standing there, listening. I kept working, didn't acknowledge her presence. After a moment, the footsteps retreated. Her bedroom door closed. Something was wrong. I stood up, walked quietly down the hallway, stood outside her door, listening. I could hear her voice, muffled but urgent. She was on the phone. I'm looking right now, Sophie whispered. He keeps everything in his study. There's files everywhere. My blood went cold. I know, Mom. I'm trying. But what if he catches me? Silence. Then, okay, I'll try the desk drawers. But I need to go. He might hear me. I stepped back from the door, moved quietly back to my study, sat down at my desk, left the door wide open this time. 5 minutes later, Sophie appeared in the doorway. Dad, can I borrow your phone charger? Mine broke. Sure, I said, not looking up from my laptop. Check the drawer by the couch. She walked in the study, went to the side drawer. But her eyes weren't on the drawer. They were scanning my desk. The files. The open laptop. Everything okay at school? I asked casually. Fine, she said, grabbing a charger that was sitting in plain sight. Just stressed about finals. Your mother called you today. Sophie froze for just a fraction of a second. No. Why? Just wondering. She hasn't called me. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair. Sophie, if your mother asks you to do something, anything that makes you uncomfortable, you can tell me. You know that, right? Her jaw tightened. I'm not a kid, Dad. I don't need you protecting me from Mom. I'm not trying to protect you from her. I'm trying to protect you from making a mistake. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up, walked to the filing cabinet in the corner, pulled out a folder, set it on my desk where she could see it. If someone were to take documents from my office without permission, even if they thought they had a good reason, that would be theft, even if their mother asked them to. Sophie's face flushed. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I opened the folder, showed her the contents. Bank statements, legal documents, all of them carefully prepared, all of them meaningless. Your mother thinks if she can find evidence that I planned this divorce, that I manipulated evidence, she can fight back in court. Did you? Sophie's voice shook. I documented the truth, I said. But if your mother wants documents, she can have them. Through her lawyer. Through legal channels. Not through you. She's losing everything, Sophie said, tears starting in her eyes. Her job, her reputation, her marriage. She just needs something to fight back with. And you think stealing from me will help her? It's not stealing if it's helping Mom. The words hung in the air between us. Sophie realized what she'd admitted. Her face went pale. Sophie, I said gently, your mother is using you. She's putting you in a position where you could get in serious trouble. That's not love. That's manipulation. You don't understand, she whispered. She's crying every night. She can't sleep. She says you're destroying her, and she doesn't know how to stop you. I'm not destroying her. Her own actions are destroying her. There's a difference. Sophie wiped her face with the back of her hand. I hate this. I hate what's happening to our family. I know, sweetheart. So do I. She stood there for a long moment, torn between loyalty to her mother and what she knew was right. Finally, she turned and walked out of the study. I heard her bedroom door close. Then, faintly, the sound of crying. I sat back down at my desk, pulled out my phone, and texted Theodore. Sophie, try to take documents from my office tonight. Jessica put her up to it. Keep an eye on your sister. The response came quickly. Already knew. She called me yesterday, asking if I'd help. I told her no. She didn't listen. What do? I typed. Let her take the fake files. Let Mom think she won. Then watch what happens next. I stared at the message. My son, 23 years old, thinking 3 moves ahead. He learned that from me. I just never thought I'd be using those lessons against my own family. But Theodore was right. Sometimes the best move was letting your opponent think they'd won. I left the folder on my desk, unlocked, accessible, and waited to see what Sophie would do. Monday morning brought the news I've been waiting for. Theodore called at 8:15, his voice tight with barely contained anger. Dad, it's all over the business news. Vanguard just announced emergency resignations. Brandon Kent and 3 other executives. Mom's name is on the list. I was in my kitchen, coffee in hand, watching the morning light filter through the windows. What's the official statement? Personnel changes to ensure continued excellence in corporate governance, Theodore read. They're not giving details, but everyone's speculating. The comment sections are brutal. How's your mother handling it? Haven't talked to her. She's not answering my calls. He paused. Dad, there's something else. A law firm called me this morning. Garrison and Associates. They said Vanguard is being sued by Caldwell Industries for disclosure violations during the merger. My grip tightened on the coffee mug. How much? $8 million. They're claiming breach of fiduciary duty. That confidential information was leaked during negotiations. The number hit harder than I'd expected. $8 million. That wasn't just career-ending. That was potentially criminal. Theodore, listen to me carefully, I said. If anyone contacts you, reporters, lawyers, anyone, you refer them to my attorney. Don't answer questions. Don't speculate. Understand? I understand. But Dad, if this goes to trial, they might call me as a witness. I helped gather some of that evidence. You documented what you observed on our family phone plan. That's legal. You're protected. I set down my mug. Are you okay? Honestly, no. This is my mom we're talking about. Even after everything, I didn't think it would get this big. I know, son. Neither did I. After we hung up, I pulled up the news on my laptop. The headline was stark. Vanguard Solutions faces lawsuit after executive misconduct scandal. The article was careful, legally vetted, but the implications were clear. Brandon Kent and Jessica Ross had engaged in inappropriate conduct that compromised a major acquisition. The company was distancing itself, throwing them under the bus to save its reputation. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Ross. A woman's voice, professional but cold. This is Jennifer Caldwell, General Counsel for Caldwell Industries. I'd like to discuss your role in bringing certain information to light. I'm listening, I said. We're pursuing legal action against Vanguard Solutions and several individuals, including your wife. The evidence you provided through Miranda Cole was instrumental in building our case. We'd like to formally thank you and discuss potential cooperation. I documented the truth, I said. What you do with it is your business. We may need you to testify about the timeline of when you discovered the affair, when you learned about the disclosure violations, what steps you took. I'll cooperate fully, I said, through my attorney. Of course. One more thing, Mr. Ross. We're also pursuing individual liability. Your wife could face personal financial damages in the millions. I wanted you to be aware. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet kitchen, processing. Individual liability. That meant they'd go after Jessica's personal assets. Whatever she had left after the divorce would be vulnerable. The house, her retirement accounts, everything. My phone buzzed. Text from Sophie. Is it true? Is Mom being sued for $8 million? I called her. She answered on the first ring, her voice small and frightened. Dad, what's happening? Your mother made some serious mistakes at work, I said gently. Now, there are consequences. But $8 million? She doesn't have that kind of money. What's going to happen to her? I don't know, sweetheart. The lawyers will figure it out. This is because of what you sent to people, isn't it? This is your fault. The accusation stung, but I kept my voice steady. No, Sophie. This is because your mother broke the law. I just made sure the right people knew about it. You're destroying her. Sophie's voice shook with tears. You're taking everything from her. Her job, her money, her reputation. When does it stop? It stops when the truth is fully acknowledged, I said. Not before. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there holding my phone, staring at the blank screen, and for the first time since this started, I felt the weight of what I'd set in motion. Jessica wasn't just losing her career. She was losing her future, her security, everything she'd built. But she'd kissed another man in front of 200 people, had humiliated me, had broken laws to advance her affair. Some fires, once started, couldn't be controlled. You just had to let them burn. Tuesday afternoon, I met with my attorney, David Sterling, in his downtown office. He spread documents across his desk like a surgeon laying out instruments. The divorce will be finalized within 60 days, David said, pointing to a timeline. Jessica's attorney is trying to negotiate, but she has no leverage. The prenup is ironclad, the evidence is overwhelming, and now with the lawsuit. What about the house? I asked. Yours. Pre-marriage asset. She has no claim. He slid another document across. Her retirement accounts, however, are joint marital property. Normally she'd keep those. But given the circumstances, we can argue for division based on misconduct. I don't want her retirement money, I said. She'll need something to live on. David raised an eyebrow. You're being generous. I'm being practical. If she has nothing, she becomes a burden on the kids. I'd rather she have some dignity left. Fair enough. He made a note. Now, about the Caldwell lawsuit. They're moving fast. Discovery starts next month. You'll likely be deposed. What do I need to know? Tell the truth. Stick to facts. Don't editorialize. You documented your wife's affair. discovered the disclosure violations, and reported them to appropriate parties. That's it. And Jessica, David's expression hardened. She's in serious trouble. If Caldwell proves she knowingly participated in the disclosure violations, she could face personal liability. Her lawyer is going to try to pin everything on Brandon, claim she was just following orders. But those emails Miranda provided show she was actively involved. How bad could it get? Worst case, personal bankruptcy, garnished wages for years, permanent damage to her professional reputation. He leaned back in his chair. Best case, she settles, pays a significant portion of the judgment, and spends the next decade rebuilding her finances. The room fell quiet. I could hear traffic outside, the hum of the building's ventilation. There's something else, David said. The house. It's worth approximately $850,000. Fully paid off. That's a significant asset. What about it? If Jessica is found personally liable for damages, creditors could pursue collection through various means. They can't touch the house since it's yours, but they can pursue other assets. Her car, her personal property, any cash she has. She'll have nothing, I said. Essentially, yes. I thought about Sophie, about Theodore, about how they'd watch their mother lose everything. David, I want to set something up. A trust. For Jessica. Enough to cover basic living expenses. Rent, food, utilities. Managed by a third party, so she can't access the principal, just the monthly distributions. David studied me. Why? Because I want her to face consequences for what she did. But I don't want her on the street. And I don't want my kids watching their mother become destitute. How much are you thinking? $200,000. Invested conservatively. Should generate enough monthly income for a modest apartment and basic needs. David made notes. I'll set it up. Anonymous funding. She'll never know it came from you. Good. We finished the meeting 30 minutes later. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was Jessica. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Holden. Her voice was raw, destroyed. Please. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not on the phone. In person. Please. I'm begging you. I looked up at the gray January sky, felt the cold wind against my face. Where? The house. Our house. One more time. Please. Against my better judgment, I agreed. 7 o'clock. 30 minutes. Thank you. She hung up. I sat in my car for a long moment, knowing this was probably a mistake. But some conversations needed to happen face to face, even if they changed nothing. Jessica arrived at 7 o'clock exactly. I watched through the window as she parked her rental car in the driveway, sat there for a moment gathering herself, then walked to the front door. She looked different. Thinner. Older. The confident woman who'd kissed Brandon Kent at the Christmas party was gone, replaced by someone hollow and desperate. I opened the door before she could knock. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. I stepped aside, let her in. She walked past me into the living room, stood there looking around like a stranger in a place she'd lived for 19 years. Coffee. I offered. No, thank you. She sat down on the edge of the couch, hands clasped in her lap. Holden, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Go ahead. Did you plan this from the beginning? The evidence, the timing, everything? Was this all calculated? I sat down in the chair across from her. I started documenting 6 months ago, when I found the first hotel receipt. I didn't plan to use it. I hoped you'd end things on your own. But you didn't. You escalated. And the party was the final confirmation that our marriage was over. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake, Holden. A terrible mistake. But did I really deserve this? Losing my job, facing a lawsuit, losing everything. You didn't just make a mistake, Jessica. You broke laws. You violated corporate ethics policies. You humiliated me publicly. Those actions have consequences. The lawsuit, she whispered. $8 million. My lawyer says I could be personally liable for at least $3 million. I don't have that kind of money. They'll take everything. I know. Is that what you want? To see me destroyed? I leaned forward. What I wanted was for you to respect our marriage. To respect me. To be honest. You couldn't do any of those things. So yes, I documented everything. Yes, I made sure the right people knew. But you're the one who did the actions, Jessica. You destroyed yourself. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Sophie hates you. You know that, right? She blames you for all of this. I know. And that's painful. But she's young. Eventually she'll understand. Theodore helped you. It wasn't a question. He gathered evidence against his own mother. He documented the truth. There's a difference. Jessica stood up, paced to the windows. I called you here to ask for something. I know I have no right, but I'm going to ask anyway. What? The house. When this is all over, when the creditors come after me, I'll have nothing. No savings. No retirement. No place to live. She turned to face me. I need you to buy out my portion of the house before the judgment hits. Give me something. Anything. So I have a chance to start over. The house is mine, I said. Pre-marriage asset. You have no claim to it. Her face crumpled. So that's it. You're just going to watch me lose everything. No. I stood up, walked to my desk, pulled out an envelope. This is a trust agreement. $200,000. Invested conservatively. It'll generate about $1,800 a month. Enough for rent, food, basic expenses. Jessica stared at the envelope like it might explode. What's the catch? No catch. It's anonymous. Managed by a third party. You'll never access the principal, just the monthly distributions. And you can never know where it came from. Why would you do this? Because you're the mother of my children. Because despite everything, I don't want you homeless. And because someday, when Sophie asks me if I destroyed you completely, I want to be able to say no. Jessica took the envelope with shaking hands, opened it, scanned the documents. Tears streamed down her face. I don't deserve this. No, you don't. But I'm giving it to you anyway. She looked up at me, mascara running, face blotchy. I loved you, Holden. At the beginning. I really did. I know. But love without respect is worthless. You stopped respecting me years ago, and I was too comfortable to do anything about it, until you forced my hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. For all of it. I'm so sorry. I believe you. But sorry doesn't fix what's broken. Jessica nodded slowly, clutched the envelope to her chest. Can I ask one more thing? What? Tell Sophie I love her. Even if she hates me right now. Tell her I'm sorry for everything. I'll tell her. Jessica walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. You know what the worst part is? You were right. About everything. And I was too arrogant to see it. Then she left, closing the door quietly behind her. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed door, feeling the weight of 19 years finally lift. It was over. 14 months later, I stood in the driveway of a new house, smaller than the old one, watching Theodore and Sophie carry boxes inside. Spring sunshine warmed my face. Birds sang in the maple trees. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. The divorce had finalized in March. Jessica received the trust fund payments, found a small apartment across town, and took a job as a marketing coordinator at a nonprofit. The Caldwell lawsuit settled for $2.8 million. She'd be paying it off for the next decade, but at least she had something to live on. Theodore graduated in May, landed a software engineering job in Seattle, making $90,000 a year. He called me every Sunday, without fail. Our relationship, strained during the divorce, had healed into something stronger. Sophie had been harder. She'd spent months angry, confused, torn between her parents. But slowly, as the truth came out, as she watched her mother's behavior and my consistency, she'd started coming around. She was living with me now, finishing her senior year at a new school, talking about college. Dad, where do you want this? Sophie called from the doorway, holding a box labeled kitchen plates. Counter's fine. I called back. We'll organize later. She disappeared inside. Theodore emerged a moment later, wiping sweat from his forehead. That's the last of the heavy stuff, he said. The movers did most of it, but I wanted to make sure your desk made it in one piece. Thanks, son. I appreciate it. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching Sophie through the window as she unpacked boxes. You happy? Theodore asked. Getting there, I said. It's been a long road. Mom called me last week. She asked about you. How's she doing? Better, I think. She's in therapy, finally dealing with everything. She wanted me to tell you thank you. For the trust. She figured out it was you. Ow! The monthly payment amount. It's exactly what you used to set aside for her personal spending money when you were married. She said only you would remember that number. I smiled slightly. Smart woman. She also said to tell you she's sorry. Again. For about the 100th time. I know she is. Theodore studied me. Do you ever miss her? The good parts, I mean. Before everything fell apart. Sometimes, I admit it. But you can't live in the past. You can only learn from it and move forward. That's very philosophical, Dad. I'm old. I'm allowed to be philosophical. He laughed, punched my shoulder lightly. Come on, let's get the rest of this done before Sophie makes us organize everything according to some system she found on Pinterest. We walked inside together. The new house smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Smaller than the old place, but mine. Truly mine. No memories of arguments in the kitchen. No ghost of Jessica's perfume in the hallway. Just clean slate and new beginnings. That evening, after Theodore left for his hotel and Sophie went to bed, I sat on the back porch with a beer, watching the stars come out. My phone buzzed. Text from Miranda Cole. Heard you closed on the new place. Congratulations. I typed back. Thanks. How are you? Good. Finally good. Brandon settled in his divorce. Amanda took him for everything. Justice served. And you. Starting my own HR consulting firm. Using everything I learned at Vanguard to help other companies avoid the same mistakes. It's terrifying and exciting. That's great, Miranda. Really. Coffee sometime. As friends. Just to catch up. I smiled, looked up at the stars. Yeah, I'd like that. Inside the house, I heard Sophie moving around, getting ready for bed. My daughter, who'd chosen to stay with me. Who'd forgiven me for the hard choices I'd made. Who was learning, slowly, that sometimes the right thing and the easy thing weren't the same. I'd lost a marriage. Lost 19 years. Lost the comfortable life I'd built. But I'd gained something too. Self-respect. Honesty. The knowledge that I could stand up for myself when it mattered most. The stars shone bright above me, and the future, uncertain as it was, felt wide open.